So, hello everyone. I am so glad to have you here for our first virtual Exhibitor Expo. And our first speaker today is John Matthew Rodriguez, um, who not only is a volunteer board member for the Wisconsin PTA, he is a former PTA, Illinois PTA president, and he has his own. Um, he's a certified trainer, and he is here to give us some training on everyone communicates, but few connect. So I'm going to pass this right over to MJ and get us started. All right. Um, I'm going to make you the host, okay? And I'm going to keep an eye on the chat, and then I will mute my stuff so that way um, there won't be a lot of noise on my end.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thank you for participating and coming. Obviously, in these virtual times, things are a little different than being in person. And I do want to say that there is no other way or bigger impact than human to human contact. So even though we have a virtual world right now under the circumstances, we as human beings are creatures of emotion, and so the best connection we can make is in person, eye to eye. But if we can't, this is a good alternative because at least we can see this. So we've come. So my topic today is everyone communicates, few connect. This workshop that I offer is absolutely amazing to communication skills, not only in the workplace, but also at home with your spouse, with your children, and anywhere that you are trying to develop a positive, effective communication. So, with that being said, as Gina said, my name is Matthew John Rodriguez, and I am here to share with you a little bit an intro to the book Everyone Communicates, Few Connect by the great author and world renowned speaker John C. Maxwell. And you may know of him or you may not know of him, but you're definitely going to learn about his work today. We also offer different varieties of this workshop. There is a 6-week mastermind course where we really take a deep dive into the book on how we can make the principles work in our lives and practice them and give you a chance to work on a few concepts and start seeing the change that it can really provide for you and your company or you and your organization in any format that you choose to use these principles. And then we're able to talk about, well, what were the results and how did it help or how did it help? And then we can see how we would need to tweak or what adjustments we can make. So we're all leaders in one way or another, right? And let me start by sharing the PowerPoint presentation I have for you today. And just go from the beginning, right? So as I said, right, this is the book, Everyone Communicates, You Connect. As you can see, there's a picture of it. I recommend you all to read it. And um, like I said, effective communication is very, very important. So as you're going to see what the difference is, we'll talk about this first slide. And it just simply says that if you can ask me, what's the one thing you can do to be more successful? John C. Maxwell says it's to learn how to communicate. And like I said, there's a difference between communicating effectively and just communicating, right? We want other people to not only hear what we say, but also understand our intent. And so as as we work on reviewing this book, you're going to see that um, the greatest thing that stands between you and a greater success in your personal and professional life isn't knowledge or skills or talent. It's really the ability to communicate and connect with people, right? So there's a common misconception. How many of you want to improve your skills out there? Well, through all of my teachings and many, many years of experience, I've learned that we all want to improve our results, right? Especially in the workplace. We all want to be promoted. We all want to be successful. We all want to have a good personal relationship with our family and friends. And so, if you want to get better results, then you have to get better at connecting with people. It doesn't matter who you are, anyone can improve the results by improving their ability to connect and influence people in an ethical way. And so, did you know that most people are bombarded with 35,000 messages a day? That's a lot, right? And on average, most people speak 16,000 words a day, allowing them to compile a book of over 300 pages every week. Can you imagine writing a book every week just based on the words that you have spoken for that week? So you would be able to fill up an entire bookcase, several bookcases, with every word that you have spoken throughout an entire year. But really, how many of our words would have mattered or made a difference in all of those bookshelves? So it's easy to speak and very different to effectively communicate. So let's talk about how connecting increases your influence in every situation. Improving our relationship with our friends, our coworkers, employees, our families, our spouses, our boss. We already said, right? It's all about how we connect. And so we need people because we can't do anything on our own in this world. Really, we need to be able to connect and influence other people in order to succeed in this world. And the friction that you experience in your day to day life just comes down to leadership, connecting, and the influence that you have with the people that you are surrounded with. It's 100% teachable skill to learn to connect, to learn to lead, to learn to improve your ability to influence people. You just have to want to. And the common misconception that certain people are born connect is not necessarily true, right? What's true is that anyone can learn how to make a communication opportunity. So, are you going to be out of your comfort zone? Absolutely. Guess what? We have different personalities. I also have a class, a disc class, where it teaches you about the different personalities that all of us are made up of. It's just that one is normally dominant. So we need to learn how to, one, identify those identity traits and know how to communicate effectively with those different traits. So obviously, if you're connecting, especially with someone that's different than how you normally communicate, it's obviously going to be out of your comfort zone. But I want to give you hope. It is possible. Don't give any thought whatsoever into developing the ability to connect. If you see it as an important skill, then you'll work harder in order to try and make it work. It wouldn't be such a problem if people weren't emotional, right? So we as human beings, as I said in the beginning, are emotional creatures at heart, and that's why those connections, one-to-one connections in person, are so valuable. So we would kid ourselves if we thought that the rationale of us just being logical human beings is is what life is all about, right? Because it's really not real. That's a facade. We are completely emotional, and emotions rule over our lives. So let's talk about why this is a problem. Have you heard something like, he does that if you push his buttons, or you need to know how to get her going? Have you ever heard those terms? Well, we can all be logical in certain situations, but then there are others. And with certain triggers, it can flip a switch in us, and we just can't help ourselves at what our reaction is going to be. There'll be a red cloud descendant, and the emotional storm just comes blowing through. So, the topics that we're going to be going over today on Everyone Communicates, Few Connect is powerful learning system that's split into two parts. More to connecting than we can cover here today. Obviously, normally this is a 6-week course. And if you decided that you're going to improve your people skills, your ability to connect, then you have to have some tools that you can use right away. And that's what I'm hoping to provide for you today. So, if you've heard of John Maxwell, you know that his prime mission in life is helping others succeed. And we've also have other great examples in our leadership lives, like Ken Blanchard or Stephen Covey. John Maxwell has written over 100 books, and he's been the number one leader in business by American Management Association. He's been selected as the most influential leadership expert in the world by Business Insider and Inc. magazine. So he's been working at this a long time. He's trained more than 5 million leaders. And more importantly, he's my friend, my business partner, and one of my most important mentors. Let's talk about our first criteria. So we had discussed, right, that everybody wants to advance and everybody wants a promotion. So how do we do that if we can't get our team to connect? Well, you don't need to understand why the techniques of connecting work. You just need to understand that the principles are important. So one of those principles is connecting. Hi. One of those principles is connecting, increasing your influence in every situation, because leadership ultimately relies on influencing others to help you along for the journey. So, according to the Harvard Business Review, the number one criteria for advancement and promotion for professionals is an ability to communicate effectively. And we keep coming back to that point, right? That effective communication is what's needed. So here, there's 5 items that help us that we should be aware of. So we've had multiple presidents throughout the entire history of the United States. And as you can imagine, they all had strengths in their traits, right? So, 5 skills of the quality successful US presidents were of the most successful presidents were having vision, pragmatism, consensus building, charisma, and trustworthiness, according to the presidential historian Robert Dallek. So, putting aside our political opinions and biases for a moment, let's look at just some of the abilities of some of the past presidents, right? For all of us that are a little older, you might remember Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan. And looking at the difference in their connecting skills between Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter during the election, during the debate, Carter came across as cold, impersonal, and constantly quoting facts and figures. Now, to those people that identify with that trait and are the of the C characteristic, he connected one to one with those people. However, President Reagan connected with the audience of the American people and was called the great communicator. Now, why would that be? Well, he was able to talk You'll see John is very elaborate in the book of discussing the story of how Ronald Reagan always talked about the people and how the people were able to overcome challenges and how he was going to work for them. And so he created a closer relationship with the entire country, and they felt like they were being heard. He spoke to what was hurting them, to what he would work on to help them feel better. And so you got an inner sense of peace that he understood what the America needed at that time, as opposed to the facts and figures that were absolutely correct by Jimmy Carter. It just wasn't as warm. So I want to share with you a story of a person that was traveling with John Maxwell, and they were speaking in regards to he does a lot of traveling throughout different countries, and they're able to change lives throughout the world. And so this person was saying, just read you the story. It says, I was in Guatemala in 2013 with John Maxwell and 175 Maxwell team coaches. We were trained 24,000 leaders there in Guatemala. And they started the transformation of over 13 million people in Guatemala. It was my first time, and I led a workshop with an interpreter. The first day with my interpreter, Joel, everything went great. Our timing was right. And on the 50th, attendees really enjoyed the training that we provided. But the next day, Alicia was my interpreter. And I guess I was feeling confident after that first day, and I started talking to the entire group. Well, after several minutes, I noticed their stunned faces as he was looking around the room. And I realized that I had not stopped after a couple sentences in order to allow Alicia to interpret what I said. So I looked over at her, and she was looking at me with a stunned expression as well. So I took 2 steps toward the group, laughed at myself, and said, I messed up. And everyone laughed. I apologized and then started over so that Alicia could actually interpret what I was saying and allow others to um, understand. So you can see that in that moment, when you're trying to connect with people, especially if you're speaking a different language, but depending on our upbringing, our experiences, and what we believe, it could be a simple language, different language to talk to someone who grew up in the same neighborhood. So it's really important that you realize that these situations do exist so that you can catch them. And then I would suggest apologizing and then starting over, because we all make mistakes and it's something that we can all relate to. So, um, how do we get better results? What do you think about having a rocket scientist? Would just being a rocket scientist make them an automatic successful person? Do you think that they are have the innate ability to just communicate effectively because they're so absolutely phenomenally smart? What do you think is rare, a rocket scientist or someone who can lead a team of rocket scientists? Because if you can lead them to produce meaningful results in a coordinated fashion, wouldn't that take time? Wouldn't you foresee having some kind of budget? Imagine being the CEO of rocket scientists, where you have all these smart people that are sharing. It doesn't necessarily mean that they can communicate effectively, right? But it's not because of their intellectual ability, and which is really my point. So often, the more brilliant people are, the more difficult they are to lead. And as you can imagine, they need people, and people are emotional creatures. And they like to feel like they are heard, like they can trust, and like valued. And so, with that, we'll go to the next slide. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. So connecting is the ability to identify with people, and I would say more importantly, developing a relationship of trust. So when you can relate with them in such a way that it increases our influence, we now can relate with each other in a more personal way and be able to have more one-on-one connection. Others recognizing that connecting is important but lack the tools and techniques. Some say that they need to learn what to do with others intuitively. Some people don't recognize connecting is important at all. Some think they can do it all on their own. Some think that they don't need other people. Some sometimes say, why rely on others when it's quicker to do things yourself? And some say, well, if you want something done right, you do it yourself. And others have said, well, they'll only let you down anyway. So why would I need other people? But the better way to connect is with other people so that you can get further. All right, so let's talk about what do you do when you're the leader and you have different values and as you can see beliefs and ideas. We had spoke briefly just a minute ago about being from different places, having different experiences. Even if you live in the same house, you had the same upbringing, you had the same parents, you as an individual are very different than another person in the same household. So how do we manage all of that difference? Well, let's talk about a typical outline of an organization, right? So typically, a leader in an organization may be the owner of the company, or a president, or a leader of a department, or any kind of leader with a team. It doesn't matter. So early on wants to improve their results, right, in order to be successful. So the company owner wants to improve the results, the leader wants to improve those results, everyone results. But given that we're all different, we can assume that we all want different results. So, how do we improve our results? Well, we improve our results by our communication. As you can see in the picture, everyone may see that a good result may be by taking a different path, whether it's path A, B, or C, and they may all be correct. It's just a different way of moving forward. And leadership is all about others. As we were speaking about some leaders thinking that they are a team of one, there's a quote in John Maxwell's book saying that there's no I in team, but there is an M and an E equaling me. So when you take that kind of attitude towards leadership, then you can imagine that the me team doesn't go as further as the we team. So in normally based on how do most people get into leadership positions in most organizations? Well, most organizations is normally based on some technical aspect, right? So you're either knowledgeable about one area or another, and they say, hey, you're really knowledgeable about this subject, let's rise you up to the leadership ranks. So the best technician gets promoted to lead the team, or the best person that has great results, in sales. I have some clients that are great salesmen, but that job is done alone, right? So to manage a team of salesmen is a little bit more difficult. The trouble is that leadership and technical skills are two very different skills, right? Technical skills are technical skills, and leadership is influence. And the difference between that is that one, it's very important to connect with people. which comes also from valuing people. Technical skills and valuing people are polar opposites. And remember, I told you everybody wants to feel valued and everybody wants to feel heard and important. So one is left brained and the other one is right brained, which I think is absolutely interesting. But different things are important to us, aren't they? So we could represent that, or we can understand that even though they're both right, there is a specific way to be able to connect. Um, let's move on to, let's go on to the point that the next slide. So individually as a team, or individual versus a team, our productivity has different results. As you can imagine, working by yourself, we talked about a salesperson working by himself could have absolutely astronomical sales results. However, working in a team environment doesn't necessarily make them prepared for a leadership role. And productivity may be high, but imagine the productivity if you could duplicate that with a team of salespeople, as just an example. So, an individual effort, as you can see, is a linear spectrum, and then teamwork is exponentially much higher, right? Because you're compounding the effects of your work. So the leader who can't connect works harder by themselves, right? And who wants to work harder? We're supposed to work smarter, not harder. And overall, the effect of the team does much better than working by yourself. So it makes a big difference to your owner, to your boss, when you can have an entire team work together to achieve results than it does you personally doing the entire job. A technician simply doesn't see the world that way. If you want people to do what they should, then you have to show them a policy manual. If you look at page 17 of the Everyone Communicates Few Connect book, it refers to Jay Hall's study. He studied 16,000 executives and was able to make three categories that I wanted to review with you guys. One is on high achievers, average achievers, and low achievers. And so, with that, um, some of the things to keep in mind is that low achievers were preoccupied with their own security from his findings, show a basic distrust of subordinates, they don't seek advice, and they avoid communication and rely on policy manuals. However, the highest achievers in his studies cared about people as well as profits. They viewed subordinates optimistically, which is obviously very important to have an optimistic attitude. They sought advice from those under them, so they didn't make every decision in isolation. They got input from the entire team and they listened well to everyone. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to absolutely agree with everyone in the team, but it does mean that you are at least considering what has been said. Hey, you may have missed something that may be very important to the discussion or the decision that you need to make. So connectors realize that if they could just get another 10% of output from everyone on the team, that it would equal more than just doing things by themselves, like we had just mentioned, right? The connector realizes that if um, their extra 10% would add up far more than if they contributed by themselves. And as a result, they don't have to get divorced. That's supposed to be funny. So leadership is the influence, right? It's the result through others but you have to make sure that you're making it all about others. The reason connecting is such a skill is because it's much more complicated than just saying okay. It's getting more out of others, getting more of their opinions and more of their feelings, and having them truly feel that you matter as an individual. It's not something that you can just decide or even legislate for. Connecting is more than just a natural talent. Anyone can learn how to make every communication an opportunity for a powerful connection. It's really just like any other skill. You just need to learn and then practice it. And as you practice it, you obviously become much, much more um, agile and effective. So you may have heard the term people don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care, which is very valuable message if you think about that, right? So three crucial questions that John mentions in the book that people are asking about you as a leader and that you should probably keep in mind is one, do you care for me? Two, can you help me? Or three, or and can I trust you? And we had spoken a little bit about how trust is a culmination of every deep connection, right? If you have connection with someone, then you're willing to be more vulnerable. You're willing to show them that you may or may not be right, but you have an idea that you can try. You're able to share that, hey, something may have gone well, but could have been improved. And you're willing to put yourself in that situation to say, to take that feedback from your leader. More than 90% of the impressions that we convey have nothing to do using. 7% is what is believed, 38% is the way that we other people see excuse me, our communication and being. Those are pretty high statistics, right? As speakers, we're all bad at first. I don't know anyone that was born an a true great speaker without practicing, without improving their skill, without learning first. And John D. Rockefeller said, all great speakers were bad first, right? Because we all have to start somewhere. So connecting is something anyone can learn to do, as we had discussed and mentioned earlier. But one study, communication to improve at it. So there's no other way to get better until you practice it and you learn it. Connecting with others, you must make the most of the skills and experience that you have. So making it personal is very important. There are several other factors that we also have to consider with great communicators, and that's drawing upon drawing upon our experiences to cause people to listen. Now, good teachers, as you can imagine, the best teachers, they know the power of repetition. So the first time that we say something, it may be heard. The second time we say something, it's recognized. But the third time we hear something, it's normally learned, which is a great statistic to know while we're learning how to work with others. Because if we're leading a team of people, we may be able to say, well, I told my team X, Y, and Z, so I expect them to act on it. But understand that reinforcing that communication, and I would actually say asking for feedback to make sure that your team heard what your intention was, not just the words, but what your expectations are, As soon as you receive that feedback and understand that everyone is on the same page, will be the most highest effective communication that you can achieve. Let's move on to five factors of connecting, right? We have relationships, insight, success, ability, and sacrifice. So let's begin with relationships. Relationships is all about who you know. A quick way to gain credibility with an individual or group or an audience is to um, know other people that they know, right? If you borrow it from someone who has credibility with them, then you most likely will have credibility to start out with the person. Who you know can open doors and help you connect with someone. So if I know Gina says, "Oh, I know Matthew," she's able to provide that start of a connection with somebody else by referring me to somebody. Now, insight is what you know. If you share an area of expertise with someone, then you have common ground to start that connection and that relationship and start that conversation. If you give people, it gives people a reason to respect you, right? And develop a sense of connection with you. Success. If you share what you have done, everybody unanimously wants to be successful. As you can imagine, success is different in everybody's mind. But if your accomplishments are perceived as successful to that other person, it gives you instant credibility. They seek out others, people seek out others who have accomplished something in order to get their advice. So if they see that you are successful at something, then they will come to you for advice on that particular subject. If you're successful in anything you do, there will be people who want to listen to you and connect with you, which makes sense, right? Let's move on to ability. Ability is what can you do, right? If you have a high level of ability in any area, then others may want to connect with you because of that ability. Excellence connects. And so individuals who perform at a high level in their profession often have instant credibility with others, right? People tend to admire them. They want to be like them. They want to feel connected to them. And when they speak, others listen. So, for example, Michael Jordan, he's from Chicago, so I have to mention him. Um, he made a ton of money from endorsements, more than he ever made playing basketball. So, is it because of the knowledge of all the products that he's endorsing, or is it because of the use of the products he's using? Actually, neither. It's because he was so good at basketball that by him endorsing any other product, people automatically relate that product must be good because Michael Jordan knows how to play basketball. He must know that this product is a good product, and then they tend to buy it. And finally, let's talk about sacrifice. And that refers to how you have lived. So if people feel a connection with you because you've offered to share an experience of tragedy or how you've overcome painful experiences, many people in this world have had some kind of struggle, some kind of pain point that you can relate one on one with them. And then that'll give you a basis of connection with those others, right? Others will have been able to remain positive and humble. I'm sorry, if you've been able to remain positive and humble, then that also creates a connection with others because you'll be an inspiration to others that have gone through similar experiences or similar pain points and give them a ladder to climb that it is possible to overcome whatever obstacle they may be going through. Others will be able to admire you and maybe ask you for advice on how you overcame that situation so that they could possibly consider those same steps in their journey to overcome. These five connection factors are just the beginning, and you can probably think of other ways and reasons that people would connect. Moving on, Max Dupree is another person. He's that we want to mention here because he was the author of a book called Leadership is an Art. And he was also the CEO of Herman Miller. And by saying that there may be no single thing more important in our effects to achieve meaningful work and fulfilling relationships than to learn to practice the art of communication was absolutely powerful. So take whatever you have and use it to connect with others, because the more factors you have, the better you can become at using them. And therefore, the greater chance you have at succeeding and creating a more effective and a bond with the person that you're trying to communicate with. So, some key messages so far that we have gone over, just as a simple recap, is that leadership is critical because anything worthwhile you achieve in life relies on your leadership skills in every area of your life. You connecting with others will be more impactful the stronger connection you're able to make with your team and those around you. Everything rises and falls with leadership. And so now let's discuss what leadership is, which is influence. If you have influence as a leader, you are able to travel further and more effectively with your team. How can you develop your ability to influence others? Well, by developing your skills and connecting, of course. How can you develop your skill of connecting? Well, by doing these four things: learning to value others, having a shift in your perception, taking you out of the center of the conversation, not making it all about you, and then placing others at the center. So if you take interest in others and make them important, you'll be able to move the entire team forward. So let's take a look at a practice that can help you connect better. Influencing is not about impressing people, right? It's not about the I, it's about the we. So connecting with them brings in the we. And I would also say that connecting with them individually is super important because, as we said, different people have different personalities. Even if they were raised in the same house, they are different people. So to effectively communicate with them could be very different. Uh, we used to think that it was all about being the best, right? To be a leader, it was, oh, I am the leader because I'm the best at X, Y, and Z. But if you want to lead, you have to be the best, not only be the best, but you have to have people that want to listen to you. And in order, you've got to impress them. So, how do you impress them? By connecting with them. So that is a misnomer, right? If you want to impress people, how do you make a relationship with them if you're trying to impress them? How about connecting with them on their level? So influence is not about impressing people, it's about connecting with them. It's not a logical thing, it's absolutely an emotional thing. We said we're all human beings, we're all emotional, and through emotion is the best connection. So we had said, right, that they're people are emotional, they're not principally logical, they're principally emotional. So to understand how to connect with people emotionally is what we need to understand. And what we don't see is the world as it is. We see the world as we are, and we're all different. So I would like to illustrate that in the next slide, but I also want to make the comment that our reality is different than someone else's reality, but that reality for myself and that other person is absolutely the real the reality or the truth for them. Does that make sense? Why is that important? Because you don't want to be in a situation where someone says, no, it's cold outside, and someone that's, because you come from a let's say you come from a warm part of the United States even, and you say, hey, it's warm outside, and then a person from Alaska comes down to where you're at and they're like, no, it's warm outside, because to them, being from Alaska where you're at is warm. That does not mean that they're wrong or that I'm wrong. It just means that we both are right, depend because of our experiences, right? So with that, I want to continue to this next slide. Can anybody, I know there's not a lot of live people on, but if you take a look at this slide, there's two pictures that people normally see. One is a black urn. Oh, I'm sorry. One is a black urn in the middle, right? Can you see that? The black urn. And then the other picture is two faces looking at each other face to face. So, depending on your awareness, once I said the opposite of what you first saw, did you see the other one? Because when I first did this, I absolutely saw the urn. And after the workshop, I saw the two faces. Now I can't get that picture out of my mind. But it's the same picture, even though we're seeing different things, right? There's two different interpretations of that. And that to me is very interesting, right? So, as people see the same picture, they may have a different view. It doesn't mean that you're right or that they're right. It means we're both right. We just have a different view. And that makes the difference as an individual. Sometimes different things happen to an average adult that changes the way they see things, and the difference is called conditioning, right? We had spoken about that person in Alaska. Their interpretation of cold is very different than mine, being from Cuba. I can tell you that. We don't see the world as it is, we see the way we are. So it goes a long way in explaining why we don't get what we want when we want it. We get what we are where we're at. The implications for this is enormous. As it relates to communication, we all see the world differently. And that's why I was saying that having two different opinions doesn't necessarily mean that you're right and I'm wrong, or I'm wrong and you're right, because they could both be right depending on your experiences and the situation. But this is a simple example, and it illustrates a powerful point that we're all see things differently. We all see the world differently. We all have different beliefs and values, things that are important to us, maybe different passions, expectations, tolerances. And it's important for us as leaders to value every single one of those points. So, now how do we come to the most important thing as a team, which is common ground? Right? Where is that section where we all are allowed to be individuals? We're all heard. We are all valued, that our thoughts and beliefs and values are important, and they're important to invest into the team so that we have a better outcome. When we try to ignore that, when we try to connect, to miss the whole point of connecting. Connectors understand that they have to connect with people on common ground. If you talk about my beliefs or my values as a leader and they're not yours, then as a leader you may lose your entire audience. If you're only focusing on what's your beliefs and values and the other person doesn't believe that, you can imagine that the result is You're probably not going to be that interesting intellectually. They're certainly not going to have an emotional connection with you. They're not going to be able to relate to you. And they're not going to have a good feeling about you as a leader. And worse yet, if it violates the other person's beliefs, or not only do you not get a good feeling, but you actually get a bad feeling, then you're not going to get the communication and the teamwork that you need in order to move everyone forward on common ground. No one wants to be told that what they believe is wrong. So if you challenge someone's beliefs directly, I caution you that you're going to need to get their backup. You're really going to have a strong story on key facts and beliefs on how you can try and make that move forward. So if it's their core belief, something that they really value, they may want to hurt you. So you need to be aware of that. Ego is absolutely no place in leadership, right? It's stripped down in raw state, and it wants to exterminate everyone that doesn't agree with it. So obviously, that's not a common ground. If you want to connect with someone, you have to go to them, and you have to be the one to go first. You have to be the one to connect on common ground. Our beliefs and theirs have to intersect. As we find common ground, we can connect with them there. But we have to be able to connect with them with an open mind. So listen, take them where you want to go. If you don't connect with somebody, they're not going to follow you or help you and the team move forward. Now, it absolutely takes energy, and I'm here to tell you that it is not easy. Easy is not a part of this leadership vocabulary. It's going to take energy to connect and to find common ground and to understand that other person before you put your own values and thoughts into it. It truly, anything worthwhile is not easy. So you can expect reap, and reaping rewards is what that means. So in summary, there I've covered some of the information that hopefully you not only found interesting, but maybe some ideas that you can start using. And before we finish up, the key to any kind of program is change, but you have to be open. It's not easy. It makes your, we discussed about being uncomfortable and being feeling a little bit vulnerable. But imagine the strides that we can make if we achieve true connection with the other person that's part of our team. Normally, it's pretty well received, and we're able to receive a lot of good information. And if we can present it in an entertaining way, it'll just make it that much better. It doesn't have to be all impact at once, right? It may take time. It's not going to be the first time that you meet somebody that you're going to find common ground and be able to move the team forward. It's going to take several interactions to know the person, to build that trust and relationship, to make that connection and be able to be effective in your communication with that person. Change is not an event, it's a process. So don't overestimate the event. Don't underestimate the process. An event which is important won't develop you as a communicator and a connector. It'll just get you started on becoming a better communicator and connector. So we have to change ourselves and our behavior first. And unfortunately, we can't just snap our fingers and expect it to be changed. I wish we had a lot more time to talk about all the different points in this book. I'd love to share more principles and practice with you, but I want to honor your time and continue to communicate and connect the way we have been speaking about, or choose to intentionally develop these skills, increasing our influence, our leadership, and as a result, improving our results. have a invite. I'm gonna stop sharing this and then I'll try and um, invite you to. So John Maxwell has a session on changing your world. You can imagine in these tumultuous times, we are looking to create change tables, and it's a free event. We will be hosting several of them. It will be 6 weeks for an hour, but I want to share this announcement. Oh, I want to share this announcement so that you at least get a heads up. His book will be coming out, I believe, on the 20th of January. We will be having these action circles of changing your world. It's it's going to be group circles of 6 to 8 people so that it's not too large, 1 hour at a time. And we're just going to go over changing this world. I haven't found any company tell me, hey, I have way too many effective leaders in my organization, so I don't have room to improve leadership skills. I haven't found any nonprofit organization saying, hey, I have too many effective leaders in my group, so we are overachieving on all of our goals. But this table is really, really about changing ourselves. How can we bring change? Like I said, it'll be valued based leadership training. We're going to discuss each chapter of the book and we're going to create action items. And for 6 weeks, we are going to work on creating change. So stay tuned. You can come to my website or reach me directly at soar, the number two, new height at gmail.com and request more information on the upcoming classes. And we'll have several 6 week sessions. So I welcome you to come forward and help me change the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. That is wonderful. Thanks for coming. I appreciate that. And we'll have to share that information out there and we can join that discussion. That would
Thank
be
you.
really great. Thank you so much.
Have an
All
awesome
right.
day.
Okay, you too. We're going to sign off now. Bye.
Bye.